Muted.
All right, perfect. Well, it's 2 o'clock, so let's get started. We're doing this webinar a little bit later just to test out a different time. So feel free to send in your feedback about favorite times and things like that. I just want to start off by saying thank you everyone for joining us for the February webinar. Hard to believe we're almost through winter, but it feels like there's about a month left of this. So for those of us out sort of in the central region and Ontario, it's been a pretty good winter, so hopefully it's been good across the country, out east and out west as well. Today's webinar is going to be really exciting. I think we've got a lot of great topics on the agenda today. Some of the topics that we're going to be covering today, the first one we're going to do is some strategies around some of the different dividend options, specifically focusing on the enhanced dividend option. Really what it is, when you can use it, and where it looks really good in LDA. So I'm going to do a couple comparisons there. The first one's going to be basically a minimum funded UL versus the whole life with that term dividend option, just to show maybe a permanent product with a little bit more cash value to someone who still cash flow is sort of an issue for them. And then I'm also going to do that and kind of refine that concept even further with a term rider included in that. The next topic is going to be, how to use our new case sharing feature, which is part of the Premier package, to generate leads on social media. So this is more of an inbound media prospecting tip. I'll show you how I use it for us to attract agents, but again, the same sort of concept can be used for you to get inbound leads from your clients and things like that through your social media channels. So we're going to cover that. The next one is, kind of using some of the favorites in the system. So you can actually favorite cases and basically tag your favorite cases in the system. I really like this concept, and I use it for setting up sort of client personas. So you can imagine when I do demos for individual brokers and things like that, there are certain scenarios that come up all the time. I'm going to show you an example of like a whole life for a child policy. Basically, you'd set it up for a 1-year-old or whatever age you pick. But again, it's basically going to become a generic example within your case that you would be able to have on file and be able to easily reference no matter what the client is. So again, one might be a sample term conversion. The one I'm going to focus on is whole life for children. I'll give a couple ideas here. We have advanced heat mapping on there, so I was hoping this feature was going to go live today. Hopefully it still will. I can show you a little bit about it. It's a feature that's coming out. It's just kind of an advancement on that case sharing where, again, you get notifications, but I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced reporting as far as what the client looks at when they do that. And then our last feature is just going to be on executive compensation and how you can present through basically a group of executives. Again, companies are always looking to incentivize these top-level executives. And we're going to basically put together a strategy using combined plans that shows a whole life for several individuals of different ages and, again, different premiums. But we're showing basically to, sometimes a CA or CEO of a company, basically, here's the group of all the executives. This is the investment in, the cash value for that, and the insurance benefit that can be, again, lots of ways to kind of position this to employees, like, again, to maybe pay out a year's salary in the event of death, but the company is also protected with some key man insurance there too. So we'll set it up and I'll show you that. If you're not familiar with our software, I see a lot of people join this webinar here. If you haven't signed up before, do sign up free. It comes with a 30-day free trial. So if you haven't tried the software before, thanks for joining, but definitely do sign up and try it for yourself. Again, there is no risk. For those existing members, again, all these concepts that I'm doing can be designed in your existing account. Some of them that go today are going to be Premier features. So if you haven't upgraded the Premier package and you want a little bit more information, do let us know. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into our first concept, which is presenting enhanced dividend whole life. And I think this is a great concept for people who are looking for permanent insurance, for people who want or it appeals to them that cash value, but maybe they don't have the kind of the cash flow to support a full paid up addition. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a brand new case here. And I'm just going to go with my sample client that I do a lot of demos on. And this is a 50-year-old male. I try and pick something fairly generic that suits all options. Now, I'm going to focus again on $1 million benefit here. But this concept really works within whichever price point you're looking for. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, again, like, I mean, you could even include a term policy if you wanted to show them term options, or maybe they have an existing term plan and you want to put that in there. Feel free to structure this however you want. Now, as far as what it's compared to, what I'm going to do, though, is basically show where I see, you know, sort of people who I feel have a fit for permanent insurance, and they sort of look at the minimum funded UL as kind of the base amount that they can put in to have that permanent coverage. And again, you know, UL rates are a little bit higher than maybe historically they have been, so sometimes it's not viewed as such an attractive option, but it is kind of the ground point, I'll say, of what you can get in on permanent insurance. So again, I'm just using our Life Guide survey here. And again, if you do use Life Guide and you're not familiar, you do get the discount to our system. It's a 50% discount. I'm going to go down the survey, and I can really add anyone to the case. So, I mean, I can add the BMO, I can add the Sun Life. I'll just click Sun Life and add it to the case and have this one be kind of my minimum cost of permanent insurance. Now, the other plan I'm going to add, and again, most companies do have what's either called an enhanced or an eco or even a term dividend option in the event of Manulife. I'm going to use Equitable Life today, so I'm going to say let's add an Equitable Life whole life here. Now, I'm going with the spreadsheet file here, so I'm going to say let's add it. I mean, we do search those guaranteed rates as well, but for this one, I want to be able to choose and specify my dividend and see even things with term riders and things like that, because one of my examples is going to focus in on a term rider. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up the Equitable Life illustration software here, and I've just drawn up a quote, again, for a 20-pay state builder for a 50-year-old male. And as you can see, the initial deposit over here is quite large. Like a $35,000 premium is, you know, there's lots of value in this plan when we run the analytics, but it is quite, you know, it's a quite large premium. So it does mean it's a very specific type of client who can afford $35,000 a year for the insurance. Again, it's someone looking to, you know, maximize estate value and preserve taxes. But let's say I have a client here who maybe the idea of whole life appeals to them, but not the premium. And again, it may be somewhat like a younger professional, someone who has a good income but still has a lot of expenses, kids, things like that. So what I'm actually going to do here in my design of the case is we're down here with this dividend, and most companies out there, I know Empire has one as well, they'll give you an option aside from paid up additions. Now, from my research, paid up additions is the most valuable dividend, bar none, from pretty much every single company out there. But the other one that I really do like is this enhanced protection option, or sometimes called an eco option or term dividend option that a lot of these companies have. And I'm just going to set it on the 10-year enhancement. I'm going to do this a little bit riskier. You can use the lifetime enhancement, but it will kind of increase that premium a lot. Now, what you can see here is that, you know, my premium here has basically been cut in half. So again, I'll just kind of flip back to paid up additions and show it's gone from 35, and when I go enhance, I'm all the way down. So I've taken off about 10,000 per year. Some of them are a little bit more competitive, and again, I can actually modify this enhancement. I can even go down even further to 23 here. And I'm designing this one as a 20-pay, and the whole idea is that I can still offset this plan, and that's where I'm hoping to really provide some value for the consumer as far as the comparison goes. So what I'm going to do here is basically our same usual process. I'm going to say, okay, I want to see the spreadsheet here, and again, I'm going to export it to Excel, and from there, you can see it's going to send me basically a spreadsheet of my entire quote here. And again, you can see my insurance benefit all the way down here. Now, generally what we do is we copy and paste this or save this as a spreadsheet file. I want to show you guys something new. For those familiar with the system, if I actually go save as now, and I'm just going to save this to a desktop, previously we used to have to save it as a CSV file. We've actually got rid of that. So I'm just going to save this as enhanced dividend and save it to the desktop. And I'll show you something really neat that we're able to do now. You used to have to change that file type, and now I can just go and import that file. And I'm just going to pick this one here that I just saved from the desktop, enhanced dividend. And this is going to work with any different spreadsheet now, so you don't have to save it as a CSV. Copy and paste still works if you like that way, but this should save you a step going forward. So Basically, I've imported here. I've got my UL and I've got my Equitable Life Whole Life imported. This is that term dividend option. The only thing I want to do is I want to change this to age 99, and I'm going to generate this report and just kind of show, there is a little bit of a gap as far as the premium level that we jump up here. But what we're hoping to do is basically beat it on a cost-based long term, where by using that that offset or that 20-year guaranteed payment schedule, we're going to be able to see kind of long-term value. So then when you do generate the report, if you're not familiar with the system, again, this picture your logo here, all your company information that's set up in that account settings tab at the top. Again, things like a customizable mission statement, or even if you've done a needs analysis for the client. And again, I've had one attached to this client file, of course, my sample case, so it is included in the report. Now, what I want to show here is this is about a $10,000 a year extra deposit into this plan. So, I mean, it is a little bit more to add in there. It'd be about $1,000 extra per month. So again, it is still a young professional who would look at this plan. I know some of the different economy plans out there really do make it a little bit even closer, sometimes within even $3,000 to $4,000, depending on how you use that enhanced benefit. So do feel free to play with that in the illustration software or get in touch with your wholesaler if you want more information. What I really like about this, though, is the fact that even though this one plan is slightly more money at $1,000 basically per month, what happens after the 20 years is that we actually start going from having that payment to no payment at all. So having access to that capital and being able to pay the extra $1,000 is really going to pay rewards, hopefully long term. And I think this is really going to show when we do a cost comparison right here. So when I look at my sum of premiums, I can actually see, at the end of the 20 years here, when the plan we stop having to contribute to it, it actually starts to level off. And again, at life expectancy, and this is kind of what I'm hoping for, is that we have a similar cost. Again, ultimately, if the trend of medical advancements continues, we'll see life expectancy pushed out to somewhere around age 88, age 90 in our lifetime. But the one thing I think that's important for consumers, again, when looking at the big picture, is to help them realize that yes, some plans are more expensive up front, but generally it's either because there's more value in it, or again, because later on it's going to cost less. And again, that's certainly the case in this one. So it's again a good selling point here. Now, the other thing is that we want to show value for that extra deposit, even in the short term. So even if we look at 20 years where the premium deposit difference is the greatest, we want to show that there is a cash value for that, and there is a benefit as well. So that's our next chart. Again, this is very familiar report, but again, it's kind of that concept of asymmetric trickle dominance, that sometimes even by looking better in comparison, even if you weren't considering the UL at all, it makes the whole life look that much better. And again, right here you can see that at year 17 is essentially when we've broken even. I mean, it would be somewhere at the end of year 16, early 17 that we see that. Like we can actually see that we've got more money in the policy at year 17 than we paid in premiums. And again, I think this is a really important chart for consumers because it really highlights to them value. So this is sort of that 1-2 punch of saying, look, long term, we are going to save you money here. And even short term, if we look at it, at the end of that payment schedule when the difference was the greatest, we even have more cash value in this policy. Now, of course, things like guaranteed certainly come into play. So there is a big guaranteed cash value component to this. There's also a reduced cash value component to this. So I think, even on the reduced scales, these are quite attractive plans based on the premium paid, especially when we're going to consider that premium deposit difference. Again, our next benefit here is the insurance benefit, and we want to highlight that as well. Now, this is where you'll notice the big difference versus paid-up additions when you're comparing this. So you can see here, you don't get that natural bump up. You can see it's flat level until about year 18, and that's when we start seeing again that YRT that's kind of built into that economy plan where they mix the two actually starts to boost, and you can kind of see that. You're starting to get those paid-up additions now. So again, it still is a good strategy, and again, it's still a great product. Guaranteed are in there. Reduced example as well is equally important, so you can show that. There is a credit to the CDA that can be shown in that whole life plan. What I really like, though, is when we get down to this presentation summary here, again, we can show that, even at 20 years here, where we take that big premium deposit difference and say, yes, at the biggest, at the point where the premiums are the greatest, there is an extra $200,000 put into that whole life plan. Before that $200,000 deposit, there's actually $713,000 of cash value. And again, it just kind of further verifies that, you know, there is value in putting that extra deposit. Now, if we have the, you know, kind of the like-minded client who we're showing the big picture to and is focused on, you know, sort of the big picture, at some point we're going to see, and it's right around, I can pinpoint the exact year here. So it's exactly in the 35th year that we actually start saving them money. So they're actually going to save $5,000 in premium. Now, for that savings in premium, by going with the whole life plan, they're actually going to have $1.6 million of cash value. So again, that's sort of the win-win goal of saying, look, ultimately it's going to save you money, and it's going to have cash to leverage as well. So I think that's a great strategy. Again, lots of different companies offer this sort of plan, but I think for someone who is a little bit maybe more strapped for cash, it makes an extremely attractive presentation. One of the other things, so like, I mean, let's say we take this exact same plan and we say, well, you know, $23,000 is still quite a bit of money. You know, it still is a little bit. $10,000 is still a pretty decent gap over the year. So let's say, for example, we do want to make this even maybe more affordable. And I'm going to get rid of the UL for a second here, but just kind of give an example of how we could also maybe shave this and make it a little bit even more attractive from a cost perspective. So again, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to re-bring up my Equitable Life quote. I'm going to, instead of making the total coverage here for $1 million, I'm going to say it's $500,000. And I'm going to add another Term 20 rider for the rest of the $5,000, but I'm going to have it drop off here at age 70. So, you know, basically what I'm doing here is it's kind of, again, mixing three coverages. So, I mean, essentially that whole life plan has a term, like a YRT built into it that it's replacing with paid-up additions, and that's why the insurance benefit doesn't grow early on. But I'm further going to reduce that cost by making it use a term rider in there as well. And you can see I've actually brought the premium down to $13,000. I'm going to do the same process, so I'm basically going to say I want to view the spreadsheet. I'm going to export it to Excel, and it's going to send me basically the digital footprint of this plan. Now, I'm just going to use the copy and paste method just to show that we still have the other way to input data. So I'm just using this top left button to select everything. I'm going to copy all the information, and then I'm just going to paste it in as a new whole life here. So I'm just going to say this is Equitable Life Whole Life. And if I'm presenting this to a client, I'd probably edit these titles as well, just to give maybe a little bit more description and keep really clear what we're actually putting in there. So in this secondary example, I'm going to say this is, you know, the term dividend with a T20 rider. Again, I'm just going to edit this title. And again, feel free to get creative with these. I mean, I often call this breadcrumbing, where I mean, you're giving mental cues to your client when they read it. So again, it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to focus on product where they might go, you know, Equitable Canada, you know, why do I pick one company over the other? We might want to get into, you know, just different scenarios. So feel free to get creative. In this one, I am going to say this is Equitable Life, and I'm going to say this is term rider option. And again, I'd probably give it more description in a real event, but I know you guys, you sort of understand where I'm coming from. You guys can edit your own titles and really cater them to your clients. And again, they're going to tell you in your kind of your fact finding or as you build relationships what's important to them. And again, it's sort of catering a case to them. Now, all I'm doing is pasting that spreadsheet that I just copied in the previous step into the case, and I'm uploading. So either method still works, but I do want to let you know that the update is there, so you don't have to save as a CSV anymore. That's all live now. I'm going to generate this report, and let's take another look. So again, this would be still an option for the client to get permanent insurance. This one has a little bit more of a term rider in it, but again, what I'm still hoping for is that, you know, obviously we're going to be on a cash deposit basis, but I'm hoping that the cash value is still greater than those premiums paid, even compared to with the term rider once it falls off. So I'm just going to kind of skip into the meat of this plan. Again, you can see we brought it from 23, which was our previous example, all the way down to 13. And again, this would be almost an identical quote to that that UL. So as far as cost goes, I mean, again, we're basically matching the cost of a minimum funded UL with this term rider option. It'll be interesting to see long term if we can actually sustain the insurance benefit as it grows. Now, this is more like a whole life to whole life comparison. So again, this is kind of giving our clients some funding options, which again is an equally good way to compare products that stay within a certain product line that you think fits those needs, and just say, look, we have the option to put in 13 or 23, and we're naturally going to see more kick from this plan that we've deposited more in. But again, thinking about, you know, comparing it to a minimum funded UL, and showing some value for very little cost. I mean, this would be about $1,000 a month. So for something like a young professional, it may be a really nice option to provide, enough cash or some flexibility of the cash in the policy, some permanent coverage, but still hit that price point. And again, when we think about comparing it to, say, a minimum funded UL, that's where I really want it to shine. You can see down here in the cash value of this product, again, it's still quite strong. It still has the effect that's intended, and that's basically to show that, even at year 19 here, or year 18, I should say, that we are going to see more cash value in the policy than we've actually paid. So we are going to see that actually come through. Now, this will be the interesting part. So, here's the whole life, the original one. Here's the term rider option. And what I was looking for here is that the 20 years, you can see we don't actually have $1 million of coverage, so there would be a little bit of gap if we think about it, comparing it to the minimum funded UL. But right around life expectancy, we are almost back up to that $1 million range. So, aside from this year, kind of this little triangle in here, we pretty much have the full coverage for about the same price as the UL, but then there's all that cash value that we wouldn't have had in that one plan. So you can see at year 20, there's $356,000 in cash, and what we're hoping for is basically that to become the icing on the cake. Now again, as you kind of design these yourself, feel free, if you don't want to see that gap in there, again, you can add additional riders. You might add additional base coverage to that to just make sure those, sort of the coverage gets a little bit more grown up, and covers them at a specific age point. I mean, you might not be concerned about premature death so much, but you might want to make if they do have a definite need for $1 million, you might want to make sure at age 80 that it works. But again, I think it's an incredible strategy to show, not only a little additional value, but also an alternative to a certain plan. And here's kind of that insurance benefit overlay, how it works to that full, this is basically what that extra $10,000 is buying you in insurance over time. And again, we can see nice credit to the CDA comparisons. We're going to see that term rider fall off. So again, even if you were doing this in a corporate scenario, that would work. So that's our, some strategies around enhanced dividend. But again, it still really works well, even against a term plan. And it works in a lot of different kind of competitive scenarios where cash is important, but maybe cash flow for the full paid-up edition is just a little bit too much. The next case I'm going to set up is basically how to generate leads on social media. And this is, I think, a great concept that really pairs well with our case sharing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to combine two of the next topics into one. So one was using favorites to set up a client persona, and the example I gave was whole life for children. Well, what I want to do here is basically set up, I'm going to do both of those in one. So I'm going to set up that child as a, basically maybe it's for a, kind of a wealthier person who, maybe they've contributed more to the RESP or they've capped out and they want, some kind of investment vehicle. It could even be for grandchildren, right? So this is, think about targeting grandparents, think about, maybe more affluent professional parents as well who are contributing to RESPs but maybe want an alternative or want some other investment vehicle for their kids. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to say new client here. And again, thinking about this one being also a client persona or something that we're going to share on social media, we could just say, like, this is an RESP alternative. And I'm just going to put a little placeholder period in there. Now, I'm not going to give this one a birthday. I'm just going to use the age override. And I'll, it could be for either male or female. I'm going to just pick a male here and hit save. And basically, it saved my client persona or what I'm going to publish as the client name. Again, keeping in mind we're sharing this, so it's not for a specific person, but it is for a specific concept. And again, this could still be used with even a term policy review. Now, I'm going to set this one up, and I'm going to say, maybe we want it to be something like, it's probably not going to be a huge amount. So, we might do, I don't know how much they would let you approve for, but I'll pick $250,000 or something like that. It would work equally well with any kind of deposit limit. It's really just the efficiency of how well that works. And since I have the whole life here open, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch this to paid up editions. I'm going to change my client age to 1. And I'm basically going to change the face amount here. I'm going to do it to 250. Just make sure we're all good there. I just want to make sure I took off my term riders as well. That's good. So we're all set. And basically I'm going to say, okay, I want to do the spreadsheet. So you can see this one's actually 2,722 per year, which is really not that much of a deposit for, for a gift to a grandchild year over year. And again, we stopped this at the 20 years. So I'm going to say okay, and it's just letting me know I've got a previous spreadsheet exported, so I just want to close this one here. Let me try that again here. Okay, so once I get this out to Excel, I've got my whole quote here, and I'm going to select everything. I still like the copy and paste method because I do find it's quite quick, and I'm going to say equitable life, whole life here. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to use the paste spreadsheet method and paste all that information in there and upload it. Perfect. Now, what I'm going to do here is I don't want to just call this equitable life, whole life. I want to give this some kind of description. So, again, make this appeal to whichever kind of case example you've given. But I'm going to say, this is RESP. And then I'm going to give it a description. So, again, feel free to get creative with this. And then say, think of this. Again, customize it with whatever kind of messaging that you want, but again, keeping in mind you're going to post this on social media, so all this kind of extra description that you're going to get out of this is really going to go forward into kind of highlighting the value. I'm going to save this as well here. Perfect. Now the other thing I'm going to do, as I do with all whole life and permanent cases, I'm going to set this to age 99 because I do want to look at the whole life of this person when I'm doing whole life. Now with someone who is 1 year old in this example, so I want to set the client age as 1 here because I did not enter a birth date for this client. But because we're going to be looking at 99 years in the system, sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. So what we might want to do is use our condensed charts metric. And you can see if you're ever in question about what a certain control or certain component does, and there is always a question mark where you can kind of hover your mouse over, and this is basically going to condense our charts. And we're going to say yes. I want to condense them, and it's going to condense them to 5-year intervals instead of 1. And sometimes, again, it can be overwhelming. Now, again, we could also add like a custom report title and say, why should you buy food for kids? So we're going to make a custom note, and I'm just going to put some placeholder text in there. And I'm just going to look up here and see why, why should we buy insurance for kids? So again, I could take something even from the internet here and just say, here, life insurance is usually purchased as valid. So I'm going to put in some kind of mission statement here. And again, it might be, covering future insurance, but, again, you can put in a customer report note. So I'm going to say, in mine, I'm going to say, this is a great right? And then we can actually leave our contact detail in there. So I'm going to actually put mine. Again, you can kind of customize this. And I'd encourage you to get, maybe a little bit more creative with what you actually put as far as a positioning statement. So really get, involved in what it's going to do for the client and those people looking at it. Now, I'm going to take out certain report components here. So again, we don't need, we could leave in the plan details. We don't need the annual premium. We're just looking at one plan here. So I'm going to take out a few of these components, like CDA won't really be necessary. And I mostly just want to, focus in on the chart. So I'm going to take out a lot of these different metrics that we have in there. I'm definitely going to leave my contact details at the end, but I'm really just going to thin it out here. And again, I don't have 2 insurance, so the overlays aren't going to show up here. I do want to show cash and insurance as well as the plan details. So once you customize that, again, you can generate this report. And I'll just show you what this looks like as far as the presentation goes itself. So again, you have your logo here. You've got company name. prepared for RESP alternative, and you've got your kind of your mission statement, that your general disclaimer. But again, you can also add that custom page. So why should you buy insurance for grandkids? And again, as I say, populate this with a little bit more text. Make it personal, make it be your own recommendation there. Maybe even an E&O statement. But I think the real nice thing about this here is to see this premium schedule. So again, we're focusing on something for the kids, something that they can run with, and really that's going to be applicable for anyone with kind of grandkids or newborns and things like that. So, I mean, people will get in touch with you for their own personal ones, for maybe a female age one. They might have, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old. The whole idea is, though, to get these inbound leads coming to us. You can see, though, when I condense these charts to 5 years, I mean, the deposit that we put in is very minimal compared to that cash value out. And that's the whole point we want to make, is that we want to see exactly how little we put in or how much value we get back out. And again, you can see every 5 years, very little deposit, quite a bit of cash value. Now again, this is something that's kind of neat too, because again, as our kids mature and become maybe not 21, it seems like kids are moving out a lot later on these days, but they'll probably buy insurance when they do buy their first house. And from the statistic, that's out maybe about 30 years or so. But again, this is something where we could then transfer it to the grandkids, and instead of buying term insurance, they'd already have, you can see, $651,000 of insurance. And again, I put in a pretty large premium here. You can imagine if you did like $25,000 or $100,000, depending on the company, that you could make that premium a little bit better. Of course, that brings down the cash value. But again, if all we're looking for, I mean, most 30-year-olds probably won't be buying a house for $651,000. So, in essence, we really do have a lot of their insurance need covered, and saving them from a little bit of that term insurance as well when they are young. Now again, all your contact information is going to be left behind. So this is a great example of a case that I would set up. Now, what I want to do, though, to make it part of a social media campaign is say, I want to share this. And again, this is a feature of the Premier package. When I hit the share button, it's essentially creating a unique link to this case. Now, only people that I have this link to this case will be able to get it, so really only the people that I send it to. And, as I show people this feature, I've been saying, you can copy this URL, you can email it to your client, have them click on it, you can text it to them if you want. They can go look at it on their, their tablet, their phone, because it is responsive. But the other aspect of the things that we can do with it are things like using social media. So again, as I say, this is a concept that I use a lot to kind of publicize certain features. So let's say I'm just going to bring in here LinkedIn, and I'm going to share an update. Now again, I'm going to target this one more at advisors, but again, think about customizing this message for yourself. So I'm going to say, want a strategy. I should spell it right when I do it. Want a strategy, show and again, I'm targeting this at brokers. So I'm going to say, want a strategy to show your client value. So I'm going to say, use this as a top up to an RESP or to take care. Something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that public shared link and I'm going to post it down there. Again, you could also add a, kind of a custom image. So I can actually get rid of that. Like, I'll keep the link, but I can actually add a custom image or something like that. And maybe it's, one of those funny, like, baby pictures or something like that. Or I could even say, like, let's add this money photo there. I was going to use this one as the executive compensation. But then I can actually share that. And what you can see is now on social media, I'm going to see, people are going to see, like, want a strategy to show your clients the value of whole life policies for their kids. Use this as a top-up to RESP or to take care of your grandkids' insurability when they buy a house. I'm going to put the E in there later. But what's going to happen is all your prospects that you have on social media and all of those kind of inbound channels, and I also probably put in a call to action that says, get in touch with me for your own personal review. Now, what happens when they actually click this link, it's going to take them to your interactive case. So again, they cannot get in touch with you or they cannot get in touch with anyone else. They're getting in touch with you. So all of your presented by information is there, links to your website. Again, when I want to comment on the case, if I want to call this broker, again, all the information from your account settings is right here. So any sort of inbound prospect can actually take this case from any different social media channel and actually have means to get in touch with you. And they can go through this report. So I've just gone right from LinkedIn. I'm going to go through the report. And again, I'm going to be able to see the different options of the plans. And if I want, I can say, okay, you know what, let's send Charlie an email. I can just click the email button and send an email. Or if I want to get right to my website, I can click the website button. And again, it's taking you to like design analysis, but again, that's because that is our website. So think about different ways that you can use these for social campaigns. You know, especially when you think about, you know, this is an example of a term conversion, get in touch with me for yours. So things like that are really good to kind of gain inbound leads, and think about it as a different way to market. I'm actually going to delete this case because I spelled house wrong. And again, I'll reset that one up and actually post it out there. But think about that when you do set up different campaigns. So again, if you have a certain niche market like corporate ownership, you know, you can set up things like that and get inbound leads based on certain cases or customer personas. Now, let's say, for instance, I really run with this concept, and I find that, you know what, I'm having a lot of success with it. I find when I go out to meetings and talk with my clients about this, you know, oftentimes it comes up, maybe it's a certain target market, like maybe your clients, because of your particular age, are finding themselves more in that grandparent role, and you want to make sure to bring it up on every single case. So what we want to do to make it easy is we actually want to create these personas. So again, if you find yourself with a case that comes up quite repetitively, what I would say is make a kind of a generic one without specific names or client information. Like again, I've just saved RESP alternative. So I could really use this for anyone who I bump into and they say, well, you know, what about this and this? And you know, the other interesting thing about that shared case is I'm going to get stats. So you can see I've actually already had, I just posted that and took it down within 2 seconds, but I've already had 4 visits on that case from people out there interested in what it does. So again, you can see, you know, you may not get every single person contacting you, but you can see it's a great way to keep top of mind, keep mind sharing, keep these ideas flowing to your clients and add value. Back to keeping it a persona, if you've ever seen this button at the top and not sure what it does, I can actually set this case as a favorite. So if I find that I'm using this one over and over and I want to show it to every client who I bump into, or hey, I have this really great idea, it would fit your needs, I'm going to favorite it. And again, you can see you can always unfavorite it. Once it's made favorite, again, I can basically access it from anywhere. So let's say I go away here and I go into my managed clients, or I should say managed cases, and I'm looking at cases. And again, mine is a good example. I have hundreds and hundreds of cases because I do demos all day long. But let's say I really, really quickly want to show someone one of these personas. And again, save more than one, but make sure you favorite them. Over in the top right here, there is a favorites button. And if I say, yes, I want to sort by favorites, instantly I'm going to see all of my favorite cases. And right there is the RESP alternative. So anytime I want to reference this sort of case, I have it saved in there. Now, some of the other kind of favorite cases that I have are my term conversion cases. So again, these show term conversions. You can see I have a CI test. I have a reissued test for Term 10 that's reissued every 10 years. So, I mean, whatever your current market is, you know, think about setting up those personas or those reoccurring people that come across your desk all the time, and set up those sort of as your client personas. Now, the next kind of topic on the agenda was advanced heat mapping. So, I mean, if we go back to the last case, what I do want to show here is, you know, some of these shared case statistics. So again, we're going to see certain things like, you know, total views, number of visits, average view duration, and things like that of those shared cases that we post. I did promise that we were going to advance that, and I'm happy to say it's not exactly live today, but it will be going live shortly, and I just want to show what that looks like. So I've just pulled in a case that I've shared, and what you're looking at here is basically some of the advanced stats. So I've kept this one up on a different computer, and again, what I want to pay attention to right here is this top bar. So again, I haven't clicked any times on this cover page, and that's not surprising because there is nothing really to click on. You know, the total view duration is 45 seconds. The average was 15 of this case that I shared. And as I go through certain pages here, again, total view duration, I spent 20 seconds on this, the average was 7. Again, I can see I've spent a little bit more time, so there's way more clicks on this page, 23 clicks on this page. The average is 8. The total view duration is 25 seconds, average being 8. And again, this is just a sample case that I've thrown up on the dev server to show this. But again, you're going to get even more advanced statistics on certain things that have been visited by your clients, or certain elements. Like you can see, again, I've paid more attention to this page here. I've clicked on it more, and I've got a longer average view duration. So again, we're breaking out those kind of advanced stats for you to see. And so expect that to be live very shortly. I would expect within the next couple of days. And again, that is a Premier Package feature, but it's going to help you see, and it's going to log even, like when I go back to the case here, you're going to see, like you can see time viewed. It's going to give you an exact date that they viewed, but it's also going to give you a log of other times they viewed. And again, this should give you a little bit more context when you see, maybe the last view duration or the total view was a certain time, but you can actually see, maybe that was composed of 3 or 4 or 5 different visits. And again, it's going to give you ideas on exactly how engaged your clients are and things like that. So that's some of the advanced heat mapping. Let's get back again. I've got some housekeeping that I want to go over. So I want to show our last concept, which is executive compensation. Now, this is a really neat concept, and again, it comes up quite a bit. Again, if some of you are in the group benefits market, I know this works extremely well as sort of more of a cross-sell. So again, you might be selling employee benefits or something like that to a large organization with maybe even sometimes up to hundreds of employees. And, generally you'll have a few key executives at the top, and it generally within some of, especially small companies, but even large companies as well, maybe even more so. I don't know necessarily which, if even one is more important, but you will have these key executives who, really drive the business forward, and without those people in the business, it's worth a lot less. And again, it's so hard to attract top talent these days. You see all the tech news about all these tech companies stealing each other's developers because talent is limited. So a lot of companies set up what are called executive compensation packages. And I've done this topic before, and I don't know, it's more of a U.S. article, but it says 73% of respondents use company-owned permanent life insurance as a way to fund key executive plans. So what I've done here, and again, I'm just going to get out of my favorite cases here. These are my personas, so I'm going to reset these filters. And I've kind of set up a case because this one, it does take a little bit longer. So I've set up an executive compensation case. I created a client called executive compensation. And what you can see is I brought in kind of the different ages of these different executives. So again, on the executive team, you may have people, you may have the old, the CEO, he's 62. You've got kind of the next in line, he's 53. You've got, 45-year-old HR or something like that. And you've got the young tech wizard, he's 34 years old on the executive team. So you have people of all different ages. They, of course, all have unique premiums. Some will pay more, some will pay less. But you want to put together an executive compensation package for the business that just kind of outlines, here's the total cost of the business will pay, and here's the protection that you would get for your key executives. And then again, you can build in things like, maybe they pay 1 year's worth of salary out of that executive compensation should the employee pass. But again, the business has the ownership of the policy and really can structure it in a lot of different ways. Now, I want to show you a really clean way to present this where we don't get bogged down in everyone's individual age and individual price. I mean, you can think about it. If you had 4 different whole life illustrations, you would probably have about 60 pieces of paper probably in front of you and trying to get a grasp on, how much are we paying? What do we get back for that? I'm going to show you a really good way using our combined plan. So in the sake of expediting this a little bit, I basically created my quotes for this company. And again, I also have used that term dividend option that we were doing before with some term riders to really sweeten that price point. Again, it's really going to depend on the company that you're presenting to, how much cash flow or how many extra assets are sitting unutilized on the balance sheet that you can kind of use to leverage this concept. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to import each client. So the first one is 53. And again, just for the sake of brevity, I've done my homework here. I'm just going to import each different client. But again, essentially this would involve just quoting and saving that spreadsheet. I'm going to take the guy who's 62. And again, I've gone ahead. I've got 60 in there. I believe I saved the 62 though. And I've got age 45. I'm going to import the spreadsheet there. And lastly, I've got the young guy here. I'll just wait till that last one uploads. And I'm going to import that one too. So again, basically we get all the different executives. Again, feel free to use as many as you want. The whole idea here though is we're simplifying. We're going to say a certain deposit is going to have this much cash, going to have this much insurance, and again, it's going to cover any executive loss. It's going to have, something that maybe we can transfer the ownership to them later should they decide to leave the company. Again, we can sell it to them for that fair market value. Basically, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use our combined plan. So once I have all of them, and I've kind of named them individually to keep track, but I'm going to rename them once I combine them. And I'm just going to select all the plans because I want to sum them all into one package and make it really, really simple for these people to say, okay, here's the total outlay of cost, and here's any of our benefits. Now, again, as I said before, once we get them summed together, we might want to change this name and just call this, I don't want it to look like a math equation. I'm going to say, so again, executive compensation package. And again, feel free to add additional details and things like that. One of the things, I pulled this Life Health Pro article before, and what I was going to do is I was going to say, use some of these stats and say more than 7 in 10 businesses use life insurance to fund their non-qualified compensation packages for key executives. Again, this appears to be more of a U.S. article because they do reference solely. But again, feel free to leverage some of this, make it more relevant for your market. I'm just using this as placeholder text as an example, and I'm just copying it there. So again, I've got my plan in there. I want to say let's analyze at page 99. And I'm going to make basically my custom report note here about, what is, let's just say it's like, what is executive? Something like that. I'm going to make it look even more pretty. There we go. And I just want to make sure I have that report note on there. Now, there's a couple different schools of thought. So again, we do have people of different age. My general rule of thumb, or what I really like doing here, is actually saying, going by the oldest age. So when I use a client age, I can either go by the youngest guy or I can go by the oldest. I can go by an average of age. But I generally like to think about, doing it even as the oldest person in the group here. Again, I'm just going to get rid of that face value there. And I'm going to make sure it's 99. Now, I might trim out some of these pages. Like, I don't know about cost per thousand, by term invested difference. Again, I have some of these more as my default metric. So, again, I'm going to get rid of some of these and just really focus in on that cash and insurance. And I'm going to take away the annual premium here, too. I'm just going to focus in on the sum of premiums, the cash values, the summary at the end. I do believe that an internal rate of return would be valuable here because normally it's going to be the company's accountants or something like that that's going to review it, and generally will be your gatekeeper and say, no, why wouldn't we just buy term? Again, make a great comparison if you want to again, do term rates for each of these executives as well and compare it to a term plan. So feel free to do that. But as far as setting up, sort of again, this would make a nice persona or even a shared case on social media. So again, I can create the case, and I've got my nice mission statement in here. I've got, what is executive compensation? So it's a really professional package. And again, this is the one I'd consider printing out and actually binding to have a leave behind. But again, it gives a little information as far as, more than 7 in 10 businesses use life insurance to fund their non-qualified blah, blah, blah. I've got a little bit of information, on this survey. So, I might use this in conjunction with something else. Now, what you can see here is, again, all those employees together, the sum of premiums was $33,000. And again, you can see if we take that $33,000 over time and we purchase it, it's going to be $660,000 total over that 20 years. But what we really want to show here is the benefit to the business. And again, having this cash value as an asset sheet on the balance sheet. So again, here's what the company pays. It gets protection in the event of the loss of the employees, but should it cash out these plans or sell them to the employees themselves if they do leave, again, it gets the cash value of the policy. Again, looking at our executive compensation, I've designed this one with term riders. So again, you can see the business for that deposit actually has $2 million of insurance collectively on all those executives. Maybe at the end of 20 years where we say, some of them are going to retire, we drop that down. We did part of this with a term rider in part to get that cost down. But again, this can be really customized based on the budget or the kind of the available assets of the company. But again, it's a really simple way to show this is, this is 4 different people in one chart. But all we're focusing on is value. We're talking about this is a straight out deposit outlay versus the cash that we get back in. Again, we can see this going out. We can see, very clean, look, even after 20 years, you paid $660,000. If the company cashes out, there's $760,000 of cash value for that. The insurance benefit has grown to $2.2 million. And again, it's a nice compensation package or that the employees can have, say, look, there's 1 year paid salary out of that insurance benefit should you pass away that's paid to your family. So feel free to structure these any way you want. There's a huge internal rate of return on the insurance benefit. We've designed this one to be really attractive. So again, we always put that in there, and feel free to vet this against some of your term plans and things like that, because a lot of times an accountant or something like that may say, look, let's do the term. Or you could even do it as a buy term, invest the difference kind of metric. So feel free to get creative. Feel free to share these as well. Set them up and share them. The only thing I'd say is kind of make notes to exactly what you put in there. So again, if we are publishing this out there, make sure there's a good E&O statement. Make sure there's a clear description of what you've done, and that, again, some of these values are non-guaranteed. So most people have that as their standard disclaimer, but it just really emphasizes it as soon as we're starting to share these. Now, the last thing, and we're just kind of running to the last 10 minutes of the presentation, I want to show a couple of the new features that are really new to the system. One of them that you may have noticed, and again, I'm just going to set up a new case to do this. So I'm going to say this is a sample case again. And we've been working on this feature for a long time, so I'm just going to throw in any kind of insurance benefit. Again, this works with any sort of term policy at the moment. I'll throw in $1 million here. Now, when you do the term search, again, a lot of you are familiar with the term search in the system. Again, as a 50-year-old, I can search for 10-year term. And one of the new changes that you will see in the system is that we're actually, and this is a recommendation from an employee at Equitable Life that they wanted to see, exactly, there's a lot, like the top 10 in the rankings are very stacked together. So again, sometimes it feels like a company is way, way down the list, like I go way down here to Foresters, right? It feels like it's a long way down. But in reality, even down here, all the way to the ranking, this is only 2.65% higher than that top result. So, it really shows how competitive pricing is in the industry. But again, sometimes we have our particular companies that we want to underwrite with or something like that. But, it gives some context around the survey of how different this is than the top result. So again, hopefully that helps when you're going down that survey and looking at a certain term conversion price versus maybe going with new meds. And again, you can see how much higher it is. Now, the other thing that's really neat that's been added, and I'll just show this really quickly here, is as usual, I can say, look, let's add this Canada Life Term 10 to the case. And what it does, as you're probably all familiar with, is it adds that premium, and it adds all those guarantees renewals with it. So you can see this one goes from 15 to 11 to 35 to 92. Now, one of the things I always hear from advisors, and I always love this comment because I think it's really appropriate, is they say, well, you know what, maybe my client at age 60 goes and he reapplies for insurance again. He's not going to take that guaranteed renewal. And I'd say it probably happens a little bit more with younger clients out there. Like, if you have a 40-year-old and we do a comparison and say, look, here's your term premium over time, well, sure, he would probably, probably about 90% of the cases, he would dump that insurance at the end of 10 years and repurchase something new. Again, he has to go back from medical evidence and all that, but as far as the planning side of it, it's not always the case that they're going to take that guaranteed renewal. Well, now in the system, again, we've been able to enter this and kind of illustrate that situation manually. What you're going to see now is, let's say I do the same survey and I search for Term 10 again, but this time I don't want to take just that guaranteed renewal. So I used Canada Life before. I'm going to use that same one again. So the regular add to case is there, but what you'll see now is this split button. And this is live in the site right now. So if I click on the split button, you can see now there is an option to add it to the case as a reissue or add it as a reissue but stop on the guaranteed renewal. And just to give a little context on that, if we add it as a reissue regular, it's going to add it and it's going to go, okay, at 50, we'll put in the premium. We're going to search again at age 60, and we're going to search again at age 70. Now, ultimately, what happens is at some age, and usually it's age, I think it's after age 70 with Canada Life, it would be 75, that they would say, nope, you're too old. We will not be issuing any insurance, in which case you would be stuck with the guaranteed renewal. And you have two options. One, you could lapse the policy at that guaranteed renewal and just say, look, we're just going to be done with insurance. I won't need it. Or you could say, okay, add it as a reissue, but keep that last guaranteed reissue. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to say add it to the case of the guaranteed reissue. Now, as I mentioned, what this is doing is saying, okay, we're adding it at age 50, we're researching at age 60, and then at age 70, and then we're going all the way and until we kind of bump back and say, okay, we're too old, and then we take the guaranteed renewal. So just as a little basis of comparison, we've got the regular one here that went from 1,500 to 11. And if I scroll down to the reissue here, you can see it went from 1,500 to 4,800. So again, it's not drastic, but the increase in age is what's increasing that premium. Again, it's assuming that they're perfectly healthy and that pricing has stayed the same. So it does automatically add that disclaimer. But let's just generate the report and take a look at see what that looks like as a cost comparison. Again, I really like this one against a permanent solution because inevitably, and as my stepfather always used to say, term is like a diaper. And at some point, you have to change it. And what I like this one for is that it really emphasizes that, look, even if you're Lance Armstrong, you're the fittest guy on earth, and you keep getting a standard rating, at some point, you're going to get stuck with that guaranteed renewal. So again, you can see, yes, we've got all those, we've got the great medical evidence here, we're perfectly healthy, but at some point, the premium still jumps up there. So at some point, the cost is very similar. And again, this is a great concept to add against something with a UL. Sure, being healthy is certainly going to save you a lot of money, but again, if we're using this kind of strategy against something permanent, it's certainly going to be an interesting concept. So again, I really like this one against a whole life product, for example, or even a UL. So again, I'm just going to search for UL rates here and just see how that compares over time. So again, feel free to leverage that strategy if you do have questions. If you don't want that last renewal to basically get added on there, just say lapse the coverage or discontinue on the guaranteed renewal, and it will just end the coverage whenever it can't get the reissue. And this, again, it's not just term 10 that this works with every length of term. So even if you're looking for a T15, that's reissued every 15 years, basically it works with the interval of the term product that's selected. And I'm just going to say 99 here and just generate this report. So again, hopefully that's, again, handles some of those objections, like what if I was to buy term policies over and over. So let's just generate it and take a look at what that looks like here. Again, we're going to see our next premium schedule, but again, there's no free lunch. At some point it does renew, and we either have to lose that coverage or go forward. And again, cost comparison, if we did lapse the coverage here, we'd be 80 with no coverage, which again, I think 50% of people live past 85. If we do have to take the renewal, again, we're going to have that thing. Again, this assumes that the person was healthy. I mean, at age 70, trying to reapply for meds and getting a standard rating, it may be ambitious. So again, it might be for the super fit. But again, great concept to illustrate. And I think this one, again, pairs very well with a buy term invested difference. So even if you had the super stubborn client who said, I'm just going to keep buying term, when it hits that guaranteed renewal, I'm going to lapse it. And then you could pair the reissued policy against a whole life using our buy term invested difference metric. And again, really illustrates kind of the value of that whole life product. So we're coming to the end of the session, so I really want to say thank you for everyone for joining. We will send out those CE credits as soon as possible. I see a big gathering this month, so I'm happy about that. We've got some exciting topics for next month. We'll send out an announcement shortly, and we'll post the YouTube video when this one's hosted later on today. But if you do ever have any concepts that you do want to send in, feel free to suggest your ideas. We're happy to illustrate them on our webinar. So if you want to see something in the future, or if you'd like to see a new feature, don't hesitate to get in touch with us either at info@lifedesignanalysis.com or at charlie@lifedesignanalysis. So again, I just want to thank everyone for joining, and have a great weekend. And if you haven't signed up before, do feel free to try our free trial. If you're on the Elite package, upgrade to the Premier. We've got some amazing features coming out, including the advancements to the heat mapping and some of these, kind of more, I'll call them automated features of searching rates and things like that. So thanks again, everyone, and have yourself a great afternoon. Take care.